My fiancée constantly criticized our intimate life, but my response totally transformed her perspective. Be me, 32-year-old Derek. Never thought I'd be posting my life story here, but I need to get this off my chest. Maybe it'll help someone else recognize the red flags I missed. Fair warning, this is long, but I think worth a read if you've ever felt trapped in a relationship. People think construction is just about lifting heavy stuff and getting dirty. What they don't realize is how much it teaches you about building foundations that last. I'm Derek, electrical contractor and project supervisor at Brightline Construction for 10 plus years. Make pretty good money with decent benefits. Nothing crazy, but enough to afford the house my wife, Victoria, insisted we needed. $375,000 house in Clearwater Ridge, because the school district is amazing for when we have kids. Met Victoria at my buddy Marcus's wedding 9 years ago. She was working as a dental hygienist back then, making decent money, but quit 4 years into our marriage. Claimed dealing with disgusting mouths all day was giving her anxiety. I supported her decision. That's what husbands do, right? She talked about starting an Etsy business, selling custom jewelry. Mostly she spent time with her friends Crystal, Brittany, and Madison. Her self-proclaimed girl squad. That manila envelope hit our kitchen table with a soft thud on a Tuesday night in September. Just finished a 13-hour day managing a strip mall development, muscles aching, clothes still dusty. I was thinking about a hot shower and sleep, not whatever power play was coming. Victoria stood there in her $190 athleisure wear that had never seen a workout, arms crossed, this weird smirk on her face that made my stomach tighten. Her highlighted blonde hair was perfectly styled, even though she'd been too exhausted to cook dinner again. I noticed the new Coach watch on her wrist. That definitely wasn't a gift from me. 12 demands, she said, tapping the envelope with her French-tipped nails. Meet every single one, or you can forget about sex permanently. I stared at her, genuinely confused. About whether this was some bizarre joke. We'd been married 8 years, and things had been tense lately. But this was next-level insanity. This isn't up for negotiation, she said when I reached for the envelope. These are requirements. Take it or leave it. Inside were 3 pages, professionally printed and stapled together. Each demand was numbered, bolded, and explained in meticulous detail. Told me she'd spent significant time on this. My blood actually ran cold reading them. This wasn't about improving our marriage. This was about ownership. Where the hell did this come from? I asked, keeping my voice level, despite my hands wanting to shake. I've been talking with the girls, she replied, examining her manicure, like we were discussing the weather. Women like me don't have to put up with average anymore. Time for you to step up or get replaced. The casual cruelty in her voice hit harder than the actual demands. This wasn't my wife trying to fix something broken between us. This was someone enjoying the power she thought she had over me. I couldn't sleep that night. The demands kept repeating in my head, while Victoria snored softly beside me, probably dreaming about how she'd fixed our marriage. Demand number 2. You will deposit 85% of your paychecks into my personal account for management. You'll receive a $300 monthly allowance for personal expenses. Demand number 4. You must verbally request permission for sex at least 36 hours in advance. Requests can be denied without explanation. Demand number 5. You will complete a monthly performance review where I evaluate your husband duties with a numerical score. Demand number 6. Weekly gifts. Minimum $75 value are required regardless of financial situation. Demand number 8. My friends' opinions about your behavior will be considered equal to mine in evaluations. Demand number 9. I reserve the right to record intimate moments without informing you when they're happening. Demand number 11. Weekly attendance at couples counseling with Dr. Michelle, my friend from college, is mandatory. Demand number 12. Failure to meet standards will result in correction periods, where additional household duties are assigned. I laid there staring at the ceiling, thinking about how we'd gotten here. When we first got married, Victoria would bring me coffee in bed sometimes. She'd text me during the day just to say she was thinking about me. Somewhere along the line, that woman disappeared. 3 years ago, she convinced me to sell my 1971 Camaro SS that I'd spent 3 years restoring with my dad before he died of cancer. We need the space in the garage for my craft supplies, she'd said. I got $31,000 for it. money that somehow got spent on her sister's destination wedding in Cancun, and a small business investment that never materialized. 4 months later, my Tuesday poker nights with the guys from work became monthly, then stopped altogether when she started scheduling surprise date nights that always just ended up being her watching Netflix while I cooked dinner after working 12 hours. Last year, she convinced me to move 45 minutes away from my mom and brother, claiming the new neighborhood would be better for kids we hadn't even had yet. I later found out her girl squad all lived within 5 minutes of our new place. Each time I gave in, she just got bolder. What started as subtle manipulation had turned into this contract, trying to officially make me her piggy bank and personal servant. I got out of bed at 4:30 a.m., careful not to wake her, and made coffee. Standing at the kitchen window, watching the sunrise, I realized something. I wasn't even surprised by the demands, just disappointed in myself for not seeing it coming. I sat in my Silverado in the office parking lot for almost 30 minutes. That stupid manila envelope on the passenger seat. I made 2 calls, first to check our account balances, then to a lawyer named Jonathan Pierce, who my foreman had used for his divorce last year. "I can see you at 4:30, Jonathan said. "Bring any documentation of concerning behavior." At work, I went through the motions, checking materials deliveries and solving problems on autopilot, while my mind worked on something else entirely, an exit strategy. Jonathan's office was in a converted Victorian house downtown. Nothing fancy but professional. He was maybe 52 with short gray hair and the look of someone who'd seen it all. I slid the envelope across his desk without comment. His eyebrows raised slightly as he read. Then he looked at me with something like respect. "This is unusually explicit evidence of emotional abuse," he said. "How long has this been going on?" That question made me really examine our marriage. The warning signs had been there from the beginning, but I'd ignored them, making excuses. She maxed out 2 credit cards in my name last year, $16,000 on clothes and a spa trip with her friends. When I confronted her, she cried and said she felt financially trapped. Despite spending more of my money than I do, Jonathan nodded, taking notes. "What else?" "She convinced me to put the house in both our names, even though I paid the entire $78,000 down payment from an inheritance when my dad died. She hasn't contributed to the mortgage in over 2 years. I told Jonathan about the canceled life insurance policy that Victoria said was too expensive, but was later reactivated with her as the sole beneficiary, about how she'd isolated me from friends and family, about finding birth control pills in her drawer, even though she told me she wanted to start trying for a baby. I need everything documented, I told the lawyer, and I need to know how to protect myself without tipping my hand yet. You're ahead of most clients already, Jonathan said. Most people come to me after their spouse has emptied the accounts. Let's develop a complete strategy. As I drove home, I realized something important. Those demands weren't just a list of rules. They were a declaration of war against my self-respect. And Victoria had no idea what kind of response she'd just provoked. That evening, when I got home, Victoria was sitting on the couch scrolling Instagram, completely ignoring me. Our house suddenly felt like hostile territory, a place where I was no longer welcome, except as a servant. Have you thought about my requirements? She asked without looking up from her phone. Working through it, I replied, watching her reaction carefully. Her eyes narrowed. Don't take too long. Crystal's husband's friend Brandon just got divorced. He makes 6 figures and owns a boat. She thinks we'd hit it off. The threat was obvious, but I just nodded and went to shower. Once alone, I let myself feel the rage. Not blind anger, but controlled fury that would fuel what needed to be done. Later that night, while she slept, I did something I'd never done before. Her phone was charging on her nightstand screen, glowing faintly. The passcode was her birthday as 314. Typical narcissist. What I found confirmed everything. A group chat called Husband Trainers with Crystal, Brittany, and Madison revealed the true nature of the demands. They weren't just her idea. They were a collaborative effort. Victoria, Derek's list is done 12 items just like we discussed. Going to drop the bomb tonight. Crystal, yes, girl, put that workman in his place. Madison, the financial control is key once you have his balls and his wallet victory complete. Brittany, the recording idea was genius. Nothing keeps them in line like knowing you have dirt. They discussed their husbands or boyfriends like disobedient pets needing to be broken. They shared tactics, comparing notes on how to manipulate men into compliance. Crystal: recording for leverage is perfect in case he grows a spine and tries leaving. Victoria: not worried Derek's too passive to fight back, he'll fold like they always do. I took screenshots and emailed them to myself, careful to delete the sent email and restore her phone exactly as it was. My stomach was in knots, but my mind was clear. This wasn't just about saving my dignity anymore. It was about escaping a predator and her pack. In the darkness of our bedroom, I looked at the woman sleeping beside me and realized I'd been married to a stranger all along. Or maybe I just never wanted to see who she really was. For the next week, I executed my plan with precision. During the day, I pretended to be a man resigning himself to his wife's demands. At night, I advanced my exit strategy. Methodical and thorough, I opened a new account at a different bank and transferred exactly 50% of our joint savings. $26,340, not a penny more, despite the temptation. I secured a 2-bedroom apartment in West Shore, about 20 minutes from work. $1,350 a month with a month-to-month lease. Nothing fancy, but it had a small balcony overlooking the bay. Just need a quiet place to catch up on blueprints, I told the property manager, paying 3 months in advance. I carefully documented our possessions, taking photos and creating an inventory of what was mine before marriage versus what we'd acquired together. My grandfather's tools, fishing gear, family photos, these I gradually relocated to a storage unit, making trips during lunch breaks or when I worked late. Nothing obvious enough to tip her off. I contacted a realtor about our house's market value, looking at maybe $425,000 in this market, she told me. Not bad for 3 years of ownership. I arranged for my important mail to be forwarded to a P.O. box. I checked my credit report to ensure she hadn't opened any new accounts in my name. I changed passwords on all my important accounts and created a new email address she didn't know about. Each step was calculated and completely invisible to her. I was operating like a ghost in my own marriage. The hardest part was maintaining the facade. Each evening, Victoria would look at me expectantly, waiting for my surrender. Sometimes she'd leave the envelope prominently displayed on the counter. Other times, she'd take calls from her friends in front of me, discussing their training regimens in thinly veiled terms. Taking quite a while to think about this, she remarked one evening, sliding next to me on the couch in lingerie that probably cost $200. Most men would be grateful for the chance I'm giving you. Most men aren't me, I replied simply. She frowned momentarily before forcing a laugh. That's why I picked you. You're trainable. She thought it was a compliment. I took it as confirmation. I was doing the right thing. That night, I made a calendar invite on my phone. Liberation Day Saturday. Just 5 days away. 10 days after receiving her demands, I made my first countermove. Victoria had sent a text asking when I'd man up and accept reality. Instead of answering directly, I suggested dinner at Romano's, the most expensive restaurant in town, for Saturday night. Does this mean you've accepted my terms? She texted back immediately. It means I'm ready to discuss our future, I replied, deliberately vague. She took the bait completely. That evening, while getting ready for bed, she was practically gloating, telling me how impressed her friends would be that I'd come to my senses so quickly. Most of their husbands took weeks of cold shoulders before they broke, she said, applying some 95 face cream. I knew you were smarter than that. I'd chosen the restaurant carefully, public enough to prevent a scene, private enough for discretion, and expensive enough to signal significance. The reservation was for 8:00 p.m. Saturday, giving me time for final preparations. By Friday, everything was in place. My essential possessions secured, financial preparations complete, legal groundwork laid. I'd informed my boss and trusted coworkers about the situation, in case she tried to cause trouble at my workplace. On Saturday morning, Victoria went for brunch with her girl squad, coming home with a $320 haircut and new outfit for our dinner. Charged to my credit card, of course. Need to look good for the new beginning, she said with a wink. Maybe we can start implementing demand number 4 tonight, if you behave at dinner. I just nodded, watching her preparations with detached fascination. She spent hours getting ready, treating the evening like a coronation. I watched her apply makeup, choose jewelry, and select the perfect dress, all while making comments about how this dinner would mark the first day of our improved marriage. As we drove to Romano's, she placed her hand on my thigh, Something she hadn't done in months, unless she wanted money for something? I knew you'd make the right choice, she said confidently. You're smarter than Brittany's husband. He actually tried to argue with her demands, ended up sleeping in the garage for a week before he gave in. I just nodded eyes on the road, mind on what was about to happen. The end of the biggest mistake of my life. Romano's was perfect. Corner table in the back. Soft lighting, minimal server interaction. I'd arranged for a bottle of sparkling water and luxury appetizers to be waiting, which Victoria mistook for submission rather than what it really was. A funeral arrangement for our marriage. As we sat down, she leaned forward, eyes gleaming with triumph. I almost gave up on you, she said, raising her glass. To your improvement and our new arrangement. I clinked glasses, but didn't drink. Before we toast, we should be clear about what we're celebrating. Your acceptance of the new reality, obviously, she replied, confidence oozing from every syllable. I've already told the girls they want details tomorrow at brunch. I'm sure they do, I said, placing a leather portfolio on the table between us. But first, I have a counter-proposal. Her smile faltered. Counter-proposal? That wasn't an option. It is now. I slid the portfolio toward her. Open it. Inside were 4 documents. The first was a copy of her demands, each one annotated with relevant laws it violated: coercion, financial abuse, invasion of privacy, sexual harassment. The second was printed screenshots of her group chat, discussing using recordings for blackmail. The third was a complete accounting of all money she'd spent from our joint accounts on personal luxuries over the past year, $51,480 in total. The fourth was a divorce petition, already completed, waiting only for a signature. The color drained from her face. You went through my phone, how dare you? Let's not pretend you have any moral high ground here, I interrupted calmly. Not after planning to blackmail your husband with illegal recordings. Her eyes darted around, calculating her next move. This is ridiculous. We can work this out. I was just trying to save our marriage. The time for manipulation is over, I cut in. I've transferred exactly half of our liquid assets to separate accounts. The house is being listed on Monday. I've moved out as of this afternoon while you were getting your hair done. She stared at me, genuinely shocked. For perhaps the first time in our marriage. This wasn't the compliant husband she'd spent years conditioning. This wasn't the man she thought would beg to keep her. You wouldn't dare, she hissed, dropping the facade entirely. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone. Tell them what? I leaned forward, voice low but firm. That your attempt to extort and control your husband backfired. That your friends conspired with you to create illegal recordings for blackmail? Please go ahead. My lawyer would love the ammunition. Her hands shook as she grabbed her water, gulping rather than sipping. This is temporary. You're just angry. You'll calm down and realize what you're throwing away. What exactly am I throwing away, Victoria? A life of servitude? A wife who conspires with friends to train me like a dog? A marriage where I'm valued only for my paycheck? I shook my head. I've spent 10 days evaluating exactly what I'd be losing. The answer is nothing of value. Her eyes filled with tears right on cue. The waterworks had worked before, making me backtrack, apologize, concede. Not this time. Please, she whispered, reaching for my hand. We can start over, forget the demands. I was just upset about things. I withdrew my hand. There's nothing to start over. You don't want a husband. You want an ATM with a pulse. And I'm nobody's walking wallet. The tears vanished, replaced by cold fury. You think this is how it ends? You have no idea what I can do to you. Actually, I do. That's why I've been documenting everything for months, I lied smoothly, including your affair with Brandon. Her face showed genuine shock. I haven't. Save it. Crystal's husband, Tyler, told me everything last week. Seems your girl squad isn't as loyal as you thought. Another lie, but I could see it landed. Because her friend group absolutely would betray each other. People who conspire to control others can never truly trust anyone. This is the part where you sign the papers and we never see each other again, I said, sliding a pen across the table. Or we can let the lawyers and courts sort it out while I show the police your blackmail scheme. Your choice. For a moment, I thought she might actually attack me. Her face contorted with a rage I'd never seen before. Then just as quickly the mask came back on. You'll regret this, she said, voice eerily calm. You have no idea what's coming. I had a pretty good idea, actually, but I was ready. The backlash began at dawn the next day. My phone exploded with notifications from her and her entire social circle. The flying monkeys had been deployed right on schedule. Crystal called first, all fake concern. Derek, she's absolutely devastated. Whatever you think she did, you're overreacting. Men always do. I let her finish her prepared speech before responding. Interesting, did she mention the written demands for financial control? The planned blackmail, or just play victim? Silence followed, then stammering. I ended the call and blocked the number. Next came her sister Melissa, more aggressive. You backstabbing piece of... Save it, I interrupted. Your sister presented me with written demands to control our finances and intimacy, and planned to record me without consent for blackmail. Would you accept that from your husband? Again, silence, then a hesitant, she wouldn't do that. I have the documents and screenshots. Want me to send them to you? To your husband? To your parents? The call ended abruptly. Another number blocked. By midday, I'd blocked 6 people and drafted emails to my close friends and family, explaining my decision in measured factual terms. No emotional appeals, no character assassination. Just the unvarnished truth, with offers to provide evidence if needed. At work, I informed security about potential disruptions and provided her photo. A wise precaution. She showed up around 2:30 dressed to impress. Tears perfectly timed. Security politely but firmly prevented her from reaching my office. Your wife is here, the receptionist called to inform me. Ex-wife in progress, I corrected calmly. Please tell her to contact my lawyer. Through the glass partitions, I could see her facade crack when denied access. The mask slipped, revealing the fury beneath the tears. Security escorted her out as she switched from sobbing damsel to screaming harpy. In the space of seconds, that evening I returned to my new apartment, to find Victoria waiting in the parking lot. I'd anticipated this move and stayed in my truck. Window barely cracked. How did you find this place? I asked. Followed you from work, she admitted, like stalking was perfectly normal. We need to talk without lawyers. No, we don't. Everything that needs saying has been said. I raised my phone. This conversation is being recorded, and I've already texted building security. Leave now or deal with a trespassing charge. Her expression hardened. You think you're so clever, but I made you. I can break you just as easily. You never made me, I replied evenly. You just temporarily convinced me I was worth less than I am. That mistake's been corrected. As predicted, she escalated from threats to promises to take everything in the divorce. When those failed to provoke a reaction, she switched to reminiscing about good times. Then to tearful apologies claiming the demands were just a test of commitment. Security arrived, and she was escorted off the property, screaming that I'd regret this. I watched her passively until she was gone, then sent the video recording to my lawyer. More evidence of instability. More leverage. Inside my apartment, I looked around at my sparse new place. For the first time in years, I breathed without that constant pressure in my chest. No walking on eggshells. No calculating every word. Just peace. The next few months were a calculated war of attrition. Victoria tried every trick in the manipulation handbook. She claimed I was abusive, despite zero evidence. She told mutual friends I'd cheated. I hadn't. She accidentally backed into my truck at a stoplight. Caught on dash cam. She contacted my boss, claiming I was stealing from job sites. He laughed. She showed up in my mother's house crying. Mom told her to leave. She created fake social media accounts to spread rumors, quickly traced back to her. Each attempt was documented, each lie countered with evidence, each attack adding to the growing legal case against her. My lawyer Jonathan was worth every penny, calmly advising me through each escalation. The most satisfying moment came when Victoria's own lawyer dropped her after she ignored his advice and violated a temporary restraining order by showing up at my workplace again. The look on her face when security escorted her out for the second time was priceless. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with. I started working out again. I joined a weekend fishing group. I took a cooking class. Small steps toward reclaiming the life that had been slowly suffocated during our marriage. 3 months in, everything changed. Victoria's Girl Squad imploded spectacularly. It started when Madison's husband found their group chat. While backing up her phone, he left immediately, taking screenshots of everything. Within days, Brittany's boyfriend and Crystal's husband had seen the evidence too. Suddenly, Victoria's support system collapsed. The women turned on each other, each blaming the others for the husband training scheme. Without their validation, Victoria's confidence crumbled. The texts started coming daily. "Can we please just talk? I didn't mean those things I said. The girls put me up to it. I need help with the mortgage." I didn't respond to any of them, following my lawyer's advice perfectly. Every message was forwarded to Jonathan, building our case stronger. Then came the financial reality. Victoria had never bothered learning how our bills got paid. Without my income, the credit card minimum payments alone were crushing her. Her part-time job at a boutique paid barely enough for groceries. 5 months in, I received a text that almost made me laugh. "The water heater broke. The plumber wants $200. Can you help, please?" This from a woman who'd demanded control of my entire paychecks, who'd spent thousands on designer clothes while complaining. We couldn't afford to visit my dying mother, who tried to put me on an allowance of my own money. I didn't respond, but I did smile. 6 months to the day after she'd placed that manila envelope on our kitchen table. We met in court for the final hearing. The evidence was overwhelming. The written demands, the group chat screenshots discussing blackmail, witness statements from colleagues who'd seen her meltdown in my office, the threatening messages, the stalking incident. Each piece, methodically presented by Jonathan, built an irrefutable case of emotional abuse and attempted coercion. Victoria's attempts to counter had backfired spectacularly. The girl squad refused to testify, each now dealing with their own divorce disasters. The false accusations she'd threatened never materialized. After Jonathan warned that any such claims would face rigorous scrutiny, given the established pattern of manipulation. Most devastating was the judge's reaction when reviewing the 12 demands. His exact words, "This constitutes a disturbing pattern of psychological abuse and attempted financial coercion," caused her to visibly crumble in her seat. The ruling was decisive. House to be sold with proceeds split according to original contribution, meaning I got back my $78,000 down payment before any division. Retirement accounts protected. No alimony due to the short marriage duration and her ability to work. As we exited the courtroom, her lawyer advised her against approaching me. She ignored him, intercepting me in the hallway. "Are you happy now?" she demanded, voice quivering. "You've destroyed everything." I looked at her directly, feeling nothing but distant pity. For someone so consumed by control, "No, Victoria, you destroyed everything. The moment you decided I was something to be owned rather than someone to be respected, I loved you," she insisted, the tears starting again. "A performance that no longer affected me." "No, you loved controlling me. There's a difference." I stepped around her and continued walking. "You'll regret this," she called after me. "You'll never find anyone who cares for you like I did." I turned back briefly. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. 1 year after Liberation Day, my life had transformed completely. Brightline promoted me to senior project manager with a $26,000 raise. I'd moved from the apartment to a small house near the bay. With a 2-car garage, plenty of room for the 1969 Camaro I was restoring. I'd reconnected with friends and family, started fishing again on weekends, even dated a bit, nothing serious. Just enjoying the freedom to be myself without constant criticism. Then came the text that changed everything. "Derek, it's Madison, please don't block me. There's something you should know." Curious, I agreed to meet for coffee. Madison looked different, humbler, less of the predatory gleam I remembered. From the few times we'd met, "I owe you an apology," she said immediately. "What we did, the demands the husband training group, it was toxic and wrong. I'm ashamed I participated." She explained how their friend group had imploded. Crystal's husband Tyler had filed for divorce and received custody of their kids after showing the court their training discussions. Brittany's boyfriend had left her for her younger sister. Victoria was working 3 jobs trying to cover the debts she'd accumulated during our marriage. "The thing is," Madison continued, "Victoria's been telling everyone you abused her, that the demands were her desperate attempt to regain some control. She's playing victim to anyone who will listen." I wasn't surprised. And people believe her? Some did until last week. Madison pulled out her phone and showed me a video from a local restaurant. Victoria clearly upset bragging to some guy. I almost had him trained perfectly. Another month, and I'd have controlled every penny. Men are so fucking stupid. She doesn't know Crystal's cousin recorded this. It's been making the rounds. Madison slid an envelope across the table. Victoria's been trying to recruit new girls to her training program. These are copies of texts she sent to women in our wider social circle. I thought you should have them for protection. I thanked her for the warning, but explained I'd moved on. Victoria couldn't hurt me anymore. As I drove home, I felt a strange sense of closure. The woman who had tried to break me was now the one who was broken. 2 weeks later, it got even better. I received an email from Victoria's current boss. She'd apparently listed me as a reference for a promotion, assuming I wouldn't be contacted. Mr. Davidson, I'm hoping to discuss Victoria's application for the assistant manager position. She's listed you as a character reference. I replied truthfully. I'm her ex-husband, so I'm surprised to be listed as a reference. I suggest checking her previous employment carefully, as there were issues with honesty during our relationship. Not untrue, not vindictive. Just enough warning for any reasonable employer to do their due diligence. A month later, Madison texted me. Victoria got fired yesterday. They found out she was stealing from the register. I didn't respond, but I wasn't surprised either. The final chapter came 6 weeks later. I was finishing up at a job site when I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Derek, it's Victoria. Please don't hang up. Her voice sounded different, defeated, hollow. What do you want? I asked flatly. I need help, she said, her voice cracking. I'm about to be evicted. The credit cards are maxed out. I can't find a job. My parents won't talk to me. The girls all abandoned me. I have nowhere to go. That sounds difficult, I replied neutrally. Could you? Could I borrow some money just until I get back on my feet? I swear I'll pay you back. I closed my eyes, remembering the manila envelope, the 12 demands, the attempted blackmail, the stalking, the lies. No, I said simply. I can't help you. Please, she begged, openly crying now. I know I was wrong. I know I treated you terribly. I'll do anything. I've learned my lesson. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered her words. Men are so fucking stupid. Victoria, I said calmly, I suggest you contact a women's shelter or social services. They can help you find resources. You're really not going to help me after 8 years of marriage? Think of it as demand number 13, I replied. Complete financial independence from me, non-negotiable. I ended the call and blocked the number. That night, as I worked on restoring my Camaro's engine, I reflected on how completely our roles had reversed. The woman who had tried to control every aspect of my life now had no control over even the basics of her own. The demands that were meant to be my prison sentence had instead become her own. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. It just needs you to step aside and let it work. I've been completely free for almost 2 years now. The house sold for a nice profit. My job is going well. I've even started seeing someone who treats partnership as collaboration rather than domination. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Respect versus control. Support versus manipulation. Love versus possession. When people ask what happened to my marriage, I'm direct but brief. She made demands that crossed lines no self-respecting person would accept. That's usually enough. Those who've experienced similar dynamics understand immediately. Those who haven't don't need the details. The manila envelope that was meant to formalize my submission instead crystallized my liberation. Each demand she made became another reason to break free. The man who received that envelope doesn't exist anymore. He's been replaced by someone who recognizes manipulation instantly, values his worth inherently, and moves through life on his own terms. And that's the real victory. Edit. Since many people asked about the aftermath for the Girl Squad, I don't keep tabs on them much anymore. But from what I've heard through mutual acquaintances, Crystal's husband Tyler got full custody of their kids. After the court saw the training texts, she's fighting for visitation rights and working at a big box store. Brittany's boyfriend found out she was trash-talking him to the group while spending his money, left her for her younger sister. Drama. Last I heard, they were engaged. Madison actually seemed genuinely remorseful. Got therapy, reconciled with her husband. They're in counseling and supposedly doing better. She's the only one who actually apologized. Victoria's the worst off by far. Multiple jobs, terrible apartment, no friends left. Her parents finally cut her off financially. After discovering she'd been lying about me being abusive, she still tries to contact me through new numbers, about every 3 to 4 months usually when she's desperate for money.